I got a few themes. So the first theme is Eisenhower. First of all, did President Eisenhower meet with extraterrestrials in 1954 or thereabouts? And if so, which race? And then I have another one that is linked to Eisenhower, which is from Shane M. I recently learned there may have been a classified informant agency that was signed into place during Eisenhower's presidency, which its primary objective was to observe and collect information of all activities and agents, foreign and domestic. And here is the question. Could this program have been put into place 10 to 20 years ago as the result of the 17 intervening, agreeing that we must discover and diagnose our own issues? And could it be a coincidence the Q group is related, which means it would have been installed during the Eisenhower's term? You get all that?
Oh, I did. That's good Lord. That's an amazing question.
So that's two questions, one from Shane and one from Paul Haustein.
Okay. Well, I'd love to address that. I'll address them both at once. I need you to go back to the idea of the Nazis. The Third Reich was in contact with reptilian races. Naga, some of them were called. The Draco. I want you to look at the idea that there was an exchange of technology. There were a group of Nazi scientists, spiritualists, military people that were part of the Order of the Black Sun that were physically engaging with these beings. Now, some of them, unfortunately, were human. The regressives. Hitler met one of them on a single occasion, and he was so taken aback by their beauty and or handsomeness that he decided that every Nazi, every Aryan person needed to look like that. Ridiculous, but nonetheless, he ran with that. Now, as far as the collection and monitoring of all information, foreign and domestic, that had to do with aliens, that came in 1947. In 1947, you had the creation of the NSA, the CIA. Would you have the UN, the IMF, the World Bank? You had a lot of things going on in 1947. All of it having to do with the crash at Roswell. But let's not lose sight of that. Operation Paperclip, which brought many of the Nazi SS and their scientists to the United States. Others went to Russia. They already had some knowledge of extraterrestrial knowledge, information. Some of those that were brought over here, which eventually established the black monks within the NSA, they were Nazis. And they were put on point. Because they had this experience already a few years earlier. That's kind of where it all started. They had ideas of what they wanted to do, but it took a while to invent and create the technology. Now, it's one thing to create a computer. It's another thing to get it into everyone's house. It's another thing to invent a wireless mobile phone. It's another thing to get it into the hands of everybody. You know, back then we had radar, we had shortwave radios, limited radio communication technology. Telephones were a very small current on a copper line on a rotary dial telephone. The technology was very, very limited. So the technology had to be created. Unfortunately, for most of humanity, the technology that was created by reverse engineering technology found on crashed ships, and that which was shared from the regressive groups, and this includes 54, when Eisenhower did meet members of the Orion group at Muroc Air Force Base, which has now been renamed and is Edwards Air Force Base. That technology wasn't created for the for the betterment of humanity. It was created to empower and enrich small special access programs, SAPs, and then to spy, control, and manipulate humanity as the technology became available to distribute it after an infrastructure had been built. It wasn't done for benevolent reasons. Nonetheless, all technology can be used both in a positive manner and in a negative manner. Now, if you've seen the videos on YouTube, you know the Nazis had created flying saucers of their own. Did all of them go to Antarctica? No. Some of it was brought here. Some of it went to Canada, which is never really talked about a lot. Because the British banking families, the London finance companies, banking cartels, including some of those here in the United States, financed the Nazis. And you know, some of you may know that the Bush family, as well as the many of the Wall Street banking cartels, were also very instrumental in financing the Nazis. And it was all done in secret, but they wanted the technological advances. And, you know, the German people are very, very smart. They're very clever. They're extremely industrious, you know. They build very good things to last. They were ingenious in the things that they wanted to do and accomplish, and putting infrastructure in place in order to pull those things off. For example, highways. The Germans were the first to create highways into other countries so they could transport logistics, supplies, troops into Poland and other countries, Czechoslovakia. All those things they did. They built highways first so that they could move their supply line and their military all over Europe. You know, now highways are everywhere. That was very clever. Doesn't change their intent, though. But again, my purpose for bringing that up is that technology can be used is a double-edged sword. As long as you're aware that it's a double-edged sword. I think I answered it. That was a pretty long question.
Eisenhower.
If I've left something out. What about Eisenhower? Did he meet? Yes, he met. I covered that. But
which
if
race?
you were to go, there were three races. There were three races that met with him. It wasn't just one. It was the Orion group. Some were human, some were not. My understanding is there were three different races from the belt of Orion. The human group was from Betelgeuse, the star Betelgeuse.
So, what connection? I'm just kind of going back over the question. Could this program have been put into place 20 years ago as a result of the 17 agreeing that we must discover and diagnose our own issues? And could it be a coincidence that the Q group is related?
Oh boy. I think the White Hats have been around since the end of World War II. And I say that for the reasons that military people who were patriots, genuine patriots, not summer soldiers, but genuine patriots, have always been trying to look out for the country. You know, you bring over the Nazi SS and you change their names and you stick them in a for-profit NGO called the Central Intelligence Agency. What could possibly go wrong, right? And then you hide the CIA inside an apparatus known as the National Security Council, which to date, since its creation, no one's ever read its charter except maybe 5 people. So we don't even know what the charter of the NSA actually is because we've never seen it. It's never been made public. And most people don't have the clearance to even see it or read it. Again, what could possibly go wrong? Do I think it happened 20 years ago? I think a lot of, well, let me preface this. I know that as our space program went out into space, and I'm not talking about NASA, okay? That's play school compared to what we really have. The fleet, as it began to explore and engage with other life forms, other intelligences, that a perspective began, or their perspective of what is, began to change. And you have to remember that for years and years and years, the fleet operated from Earth. Its survival, its logistical supply line was connected and dependent on Earth. Their families, they had them were here on Earth. Now, many of the people that were involved in this program, it's not that they're strictly orphans. Some of them made a decision to do this, to explore worlds unknown. And they left family and friends behind. Many of these people were black iced. And for those of you who are not aware of what that means, black iced means they disappeared, they were ruled dead, killed off on paper so that they were dead, so that their families could have some closure, and so that they could go out and explore, go to Mars, other moons, explore the solar system, etc. That's what I mean by black ice. People who are presumed dead, but they actually aren't. But they made those decisions. That does not mean that they didn't care and love their families that they left behind. When it became known that the rulers of this planet decided they were going to kill off 80% of the world's population, that kicked things into gear. Because there is no way an event like that does not affect everybody, unless you're not human. Okay? Unless you're not here with us or from us or a part of us. As early back as we can tell, those first conversations began in the late 70s. Behind closed doors, Council of Foreign Relations, and other nefarious groups. We didn't see it start appearing in law or in papers. I think until the 90s. So maybe you're right, 20 something years ago. But the first time I remember hearing about it from an Earth source was a paper that was introduced at the UN. It was a pre-Agenda 21 paper. Of corralling the population into huge city areas and creating no-go zones to just allow nature to flourish. So, getting back to Eisenhower, the great work that's been done with everyone involved in the Disclosure Project, the former general, the adjutant general of the National Guard, who was Eisenhower's chief of staff, I cannot remember his name off the top of my head, says on video that after the meeting at Morocco and the establishment of groups to deal with this, to classify technology, to classify the meetings, the information, and to monitor what they were going to do in monitoring human beings here, aka abduct, that Eisenhower was literally locked out of the process and lost control of the group within a few weeks. Now, I know that the NSA was given the ability to classify itself, its own information. So it's probably amazing the actual knowledge that they have that none of us have seen and continue to compile, frankly. So yeah, this is a huge story, and it reaches into every single facet of our life here on Earth, everyone's life. It affects everyone's life here. It would dramatically change our own perspective of ourselves, our own world, who we are, and what the galaxy really is, and how alive it is. It's all encompassing, and it's all changing. It will change everything that we know about ourselves permanently once it's all known. It's tricky, though, because they've dumbed down the population so much that in releasing this information, you don't want to overwhelm everyone where they start acting like morons, you know, crying and weeping and being God. I mean, just look how they act when Trump became president. How would they react if they found out everything that they thought they knew was wrong? You know, they would just lose it, absolutely lose it. And that's not to say a percentage of them won't do that anyway. But the idea is to absorb the information, incorporate it, and move forward. We have to keep moving forward towards a very specific goal, and that goal has to be and should be and is to empowering the human race and educating the human race to what really is going on here. And after we get past righteous anger and indignation, and believe me when I tell you it's all justified, we're going to have to incorporate what we're learning and take steps forward to move humanity to a higher place and to begin to engage with not only higher spiritual principles, but higher spiritual life. Because that's where we're going. We have to prepare ourselves to be able to fully engage and to integrate all this knowledge that we're going to be acquiring. And that's going to take warriors. That's going to take warriors. Not the lethal kind, but I'm talking about spiritual warriors. Because we're going to have to help pull people along, you know, along the way. They're going to be asking questions. We're going to have to be able to explain this to them. I mean, 25 years, like 30, what, 28, 29 years? 29 years now, shit. 29 years October, holy cow. When I talked about this stuff, and I started with just a few friends, people that I knew very well, who I ended up losing as friends because they were Christian because of this. You can talk about any of this stuff. Oh my God. You were, you know, you padded cell in Bellevue. That's where they wanted you to go. Today, it's commonplace to hear these type of conversations. A lot of people around the world have seen ships. Whether they're ours or not, or Nazis or not, they've seen flying saucers. Okay? So they're out of the box. So it's moving. It's just not moving fast enough for us, those of us who are awake, because it's like moving, it's like, like molasses out of a tree. It is just taking forever. But nonetheless, it is what it is. In spiritual terms, it's moving quite quickly, apparently. We just don't see we're not seeing the physical manifestation of all the shifts and changes dimensionally that we want. But, a word of caution, once we really begin to see the spiritual shifts and dimensional frequency changes here, things are going to move really fast. And we all have to be prepared for that, for the adjustments and changes, to be able to integrate the changes and to keep moving our families forward, towards the goal of genuine freedom. We haven't really had that for quite some time. Real, genuine freedom. So I'm just rambling. I apologize.